Hey guys, this is Brad from Blue Nile Farm. I got a lot of multiple projects going on here today, and one thing I kind of stumbled upon was this old Mott Flail Mower that I wanted to pull out of the weeds. I haven't used it in probably 7 years. It's been sitting idle, and I wanted to kind of go over it, the machine, change the gear lube, and get it out and do a little bit of flail mowing real quick and see how it runs. So kind of stay tuned. I'm kind of going to go over specifically changing the gear lube out of this machine because it's a little different than most, and I want to point out a few things, and then kind of give you an overview of this old flail mower. It's probably about 50 to 60 years old. These Motts were basically bought out by Alamo, and they're really popular with road crew departments and stuff. And if you never really use the flail mower, they're pretty enjoyable to use. And unfortunately, I haven't used them as much as I should. But stick with me today, kind of go over the flail mower, kind of show you what it can do, and specifically show you how to change this gear lead because it's a little different. So stay tuned. So in the back of the machine, this is the reservoir where you're going to have 80-90 weight oil. And just like every other reservoir that has a gear lube, you have a bottom drain plug, you have a top fill plug, which is this one. But what's different about this one versus a lot of the other ones is you have two side check level ports. You have a port here on the bottom and one on the top. And it is not really designed for you to kind of fill, both of them up, and they're not two separate compartments, they're actually one. The reason why they're different is that, I have this thing kind of sitting upright at a 90 degrees, and it's considered level. So bottom line is, if you were going to fill this gear lube up properly, you need to fill up to the bottom when it is level. But if this thing is cocked forward or tilted at an angle, that's when you have to fill it up, and that would be your gauge, would be the top one. So, good train of thought would be always fill it up to the bottom one, stay level. But if this was down or leaning forward and in a different angle, then you would fill it up to here. And that's basically the thing that's a little bit different between these and the other ones. Now, when I popped this off, I had a lot of water in there and condensation. This thing sat for a while, probably like 4 ounces of water. I was pretty disappointed with that. But, I know it's really time to change the oil, and that's what I'm doing. It probably hasn't been changed in probably 20 years, so probably even longer, who knows. But let's get to it and kind of show how it works. So I drained this a night ago, and my suggestion is, since this is an older piece of equipment, make sure everything is loose and you can actually, take these parts off, and, these old machines are really pretty solid, and they've been around a long time. So this is the top one. It comes out. I'm just going to basically screw that back in and leave it snug because I just wanted to break it free so that down the road, it's not going to be too corroded. And this one's the bottom one. We're going to fill up to the bottom. So I took the bottom plug out. I'm going to put it back in, and I cleaned it all off. We'll snug that one up real quick, and then we'll put gear lube in. So our goal, once I start loading this thing up with gear lube, is to make sure it starts to run out of this port. Once it does, then we have enough gear lube in the machine. These were on really tight too. I don't know how long it's been sitting. I've never changed it. The story on this machine, kind of give you an overview, is I bought it at an auction for 300 bucks. And I think it was money well spent. I used it a couple times, and then I just never got with it and stuck with it. And, I use brush hogs like everybody else, but, I bought this because I want something that does a finer job. And I don't think this thing's going to take a lot of lube. So, get yourself, one of these tubes that'll make it a little bit easier, even though this plug is pretty simple to fill. So this is actually a quart. And we'll see how much this thing takes. I didn't have a whole bunch in it last time. My squirt bottle lid's a little loose. I was really surprised how much water and condensation is, but they say these older machines, becomes to be a problem. Now the problem is if you overfill this, and say you went to the top line and you weren't ready for it, you can have some serious problems with your machine because it might start foaming, might blow seals, and it's just not good for it. So you're better to put the minimum amount. Now I just took 1 quart. It's coming out of the port, so we'll just put our cap back in, and that'll be the end of that. Of course, where did I put my port? Where did they go? Here it is. So that should be the part where you want to stop. So it takes about 1 quart on this Mott, and that was it. And it was definitely overdue. You know, this thing was around really tight, and I don't think they need to be on that tight. But as long as they're snug and they're not leaking, that's all you need to do. And there you have it. We changed the oil, and it was well overdue. So that's a little trick that you should know if you are dealing with a Mott, or if you're dealing with a different kind of machine that has, you know, 2 check points. You know, understand that one of them is probably for a tilt position, and one is probably used for level. And bottom is always pretty much the level one, so it's something to pay attention to. And if anybody knows more than I do, please tell me. But I think that's what I was told, and that's what I understand. And you definitely don't want to overfill this. But don't neglect them either, because these older machines, they'll last a long time. They're more durable than the newer ones. And, you know, they just need a little bit of TLC, and you'll be good to go. So here's a quick overview of the machine. It's actually, the width is 7.6 or 90 inches of cut. Basically, it's Cat 1. And has lots of little teeth on the bottom. And like I say, it's been sitting for a while. So it definitely needs to be used, but most of the teeth are actually in there. And once it gets working, hopefully it'll clean itself up like anything else and get rid of all that rust. The belt might be going, so we'll see. It looks a little cracked and it needs a little TLC, but hopefully we can get by today without it. And that's pretty much it. But overall, it's very solid. There's no real holes or anything. And has a roller on the bottom, just like probably most flail mowers. But overall, it's a pretty solid machine, and we'll see how it does. I'm going to put it behind a 55 LS today. It's 55 horsepower LS, and we'll see how it works. But that's overall of this machine. So the machine's hooked up to the 55 horse LS, and bottom line is, on any tool I use, I talk about hydraulic top links, and that's what I put on here, hydraulic top link to control the machine. We have the hydraulics in. My pins are kind of half-assed because I can't find any of my pins. But overall, she's set to jet. She's got nice coverage, and we'll run down the road real fast, and we'll start seeing what you can do in a field that I need to kind of mow out. So I'm just going to start right off in that field. This is actually the first thing cut of the year, and it's Memorial Day. So basically I rent the field from this woman, and she wanted to do some camping, and I want this little section I need to mow for her, and that's what I'm going to do. So I think it'll do a better job and a cleaner job with this flail mower. So we'll see how she is in action. I got it started, it ran, and let's head down the road. All right, so let's take a quick look at this machine. Obviously, I ran a while. I did a little bit of cutting and cleaned out the underneath pretty good. All that rust got whacked off just as expected. I smelled my belt burning a little bit, but it's probably definitely needs a new belt, but it didn't break, so that's a good thing. Tell you what, did a really nice job cutting, and I'm kind of glad I brought it out here. So what you see is it's kind of like a mulcher in the sense that it cuts and it just really chops the stuff up, and that's what's nice about it versus, see, a brush hog, you just cut in one little piece. Every time this thing goes over it keeps mulching it more and more and more, and I think it's a really nice cut, about 4 inches down, maybe a little less, and I'm pretty impressed. So, you know, this is a pretty nice little tool for your arsenal. You don't go real fast with it, but a lot of guys don't go fast with their brush hogs. And, you know, this is an uneven territory here, and it's not super thick, but, you know, it's pretty tall, and it does a nicer job and a cleaner cut than a brush hog would. So, very happy with this, because I really didn't want to come back and do multiple cuts in this little section. But I'm really happy with it. I mean, everything got cut. I mean, everything where my foot is, I mean, it just cut it down and flailed it, and went into a little wet spot there, but very, very happy. So I'll continue cutting and give you guys a few more shots, this time off the tractor. And you can see the tractor and the flail mower working for a little bit. I gotta tell you what, guys, I'm pretty happy I grabbed that thing and got back into use. Those flail mowers, I paid only $300 for this at an auction. It was well worth the money. And you can pick these things up for under $1,000 all day long, especially the older models, and they're built strong. So, and they come with different blade sizes. You got to pick the ones that work for you. But I'll tell you what, the action of a flail mower, the chains are designed, if they hit something, they bounce off. They're not going to be as detrimental as, say, a blade is, or get bent. Those flails, they're on a chain and they hit and they bounce right off things. So they're really good on rocky ground. They're good in orchards. They do a really nice job. And what's nice is they mulch. So even if I took, let's say, a zero turn out here, I would have a heck of a time cutting it, or a finish mower, or even a brush hog. I'd have to go over a lot of times. This stuff is cut nice. It's chopped up, and it's going to degrade really quickly. And I'll tell you, it does a nice, clean job, especially on a one-time cut. So even if you went through a field and you brush hogged and you came back through with the flail mower and cleaned things up, this would be a great thing to do. If you're one of these guys like me that use a chain harrow, and I want to grab a thatch off a hayfield and I'm pulling it out to the edges, and say I want to clean it up, well, I can run this mower over it with the flail mower, and it'll do a nicer job breaking down the material to decompose quicker. So again, flail mowers are really an underused product. I plan on using this around my fence rows a little bit more. I've always been using a zero turn, but I'll tell you, this really is not a bad way to go. And if you can find one of these older ones, they'll last forever. And all you got to do is take care of them. And like I say, doing that final drive is very, very important for you to do to maintain your equipment. And my belt's burning up a little bit, so I'm going to have to look for a new belt. But, for the age of this machine, I'm pretty sure that this one I have on there is just barely hanging on. But it's doing a great job, and I'm pretty happy with it. And this is a small section, and I'm just taking my time, and I'm cutting it thoroughly. This is not a race for speed. It's just being smooth and, doing a good job. But for a one-time cut, it's wonderful. So I suggest you look into these. They're good little tools. And like I said, you can find them at auctions all day long. If you can find one, look into one, because they're well worth it. And I think they're probably one of the most misunderused mowers for most of the homeowners and farmers. We always go to that brush hog, but, this does a really nice job. Can't argue. So, with that said, thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. Take care.